Hey everybody, welcome to Relationship Matters livecast. This is a livecast where we talk all things relationship. I really believe, and I have a conviction that everything flows out of relationship. And so to have a healthy life, to have healthy families, to have a healthy community, we need to have healthy relationships. And so I help people, I empower them through tools and coaching and speaking. I help them to build healthy relationships with God, with themselves, and with others. And that's kind of my gig, and that's what I do. And this week, I'm flying solo. You'll notice I don't have a guest on. This is the first time in the live cast history so far that I don't have a guest. And there's a couple of reasons for that. But today, I wanted to. The biggest thing is, I want to I have something in my heart to share, and so I'm going to jump into that in a few minutes. A couple things I want to let you know about, of course, is that you can access all that you need to know about me at my website, markgordon.ca. It's really easy, just my name, Mark Gordon, and then .ca. And you will be able to connect with all kinds of things on there in terms of what I offer. I have blind spot assessments, a 3-minute tool. 3 minutes it takes, and it'll tell you what style of personality you have and what kind of potential blind spots that could come into play. And then it has some relational tips on how to better your relationships by understanding other people's styles and their blind spots. And so that's a really helpful tool. I also have online courses now, and I've got the first one up. And if you do go to my website, you just hit on the tab what I offer, and you're going to see blind spot. The next tab you're going to see is courses. If you click on there, I have one right now called the 5 Pillars of a Healthy Foundation for Every Relationship. And it is a video training series with some worksheets and all that kind of stuff. And I'm offering it right now. If you use the code word, appreciation, okay, because I appreciate you for watching. If you use that code word, it's half price right now. And so you can get that for half price and take that course. It's very helpful. I've been getting positive feedback from it so far. And so I really want to give you that opportunity to experience it at half the cost. And so you can do that. And you'll also see on there, I have the live casts, all my social media links and all that kind of stuff. I really ask that you would, you can subscribe to my podcast through any of the podcast platforms, Apple, Spotify, Google, all the different ones. You can find me on there by just typing in Relationship Matters by Mark Gordon, and you will find me on those channels. On Facebook, I have a Relationship Matters page you can like, and soon I'm going to be doing groups. I'm going to have Relationship Matters groups where I will be going on doing some live training every week and providing that exclusively to people that join the group. And so be watching out for that. So I got all kinds of things going on, and I just wanted to have one session here today with no guests so that I could focus and let you know the things that I'm doing right now. Of course, I have the book. You can order the book right off the website called Relationship Matters, and it's an easy read, but it's a great tool to help enrich your relationships and to give you a solid foundation and some framework and to understand how relationships work and whatnot. And so really you can get my book, Relationship Matters. You can see it over my shoulder here. That's my poster for it. And you'll see that on the website as well. So head over to the website anytime and just noodle around. And if you ever need anything, you can send me a message on there and reach out to me, and I'll be happy to respond to you. If you need coaching, I also offer that. Although my slate is fairly full right now, I'm always happy to bring on new clients. All right. Why did I want to do this session today with no guest? Well, I love my guests, and I really encourage you subscribe to the YouTube channel and to Spotify. Go back and listen and watch some of those. It's all different areas of relationship at work, in business, organizations, but also at home with spousal and with kids. Last week we had Darlene Unron. It was fantastic. If you're a parent, you're going to want to go back and watch that one. So there are my guests have been so amazing, and I've got really great ones coming up here in the next few weeks as well. And I've got a surprise one for next week, so you don't want to miss next week. It's going to be a surprise guest, and I'll just say it's going to be somebody from my family, and it's going to be really cool. They're a little nervous to do it, but I think you're going to really enjoy it. So that's next week. So this week, what I wanted to talk about, I've been talking with a lot of people recently, and the subject of shame comes up. There's so many people that struggle with shame, that struggle with and often don't even know they're struggling with shame. They don't maybe know that that's what it is. But shame is like it's like a weed that just doesn't stop growing until you get the root out of it. And it filters everything in your life, and it creates a lens in which we look through that affects our relationships with ourselves and with others especially. And when that is there, when it's in behind the scenes and it's just kind of playing out behind the scenes, it really can destroy your happiness, your joy. It can destroy your relationships, so much so. And I want to just talk a bit about that today. I'm going to do a lesson. I do teach a class, a workshop, and it will eventually be on my online courses as well. I'm going to be filming more this year, and so you're going to get more of that. And this one will be on there. But I'm just going to give you cliff notes today. But it's called shadow boxing, and that's kind of a description of what shame is. It's kind of like shadow boxing. It's like you can never really pin it down. It's like jello on the wall. It's really hard to pin down and to understand. So as we jump into this conversation today, I want to invite you to comment on either, if you're on Facebook or if you're on YouTube, doesn't matter. You can make comments. It comes right into the studio here. And I would like to hear from you. I would like you to ask questions. Let's get this interactive. I love that. And so it means the world to me if you can like it, like on the page. If I say something that stands out to you, I can't tell who's on. I can just basically see how many are on. And so I want to make sure that this is interactive. So please ask questions and make your own statements. What are your own experiences with shame, and how have you overcome it? And so let's just jump right into this. I love Brene Brown, and she says this. She says the purpose, shame is the swampland of the soul. It's the swampland of the soul, and the purpose is not to construct a home and live there. It's to put on some galoshes and walk through and find your way around. So listen, the idea behind shame is not to just kind of live in it and to allow it to affect your life. It affects every part of your life. And the reason it does is because it, like I said earlier, it puts a filter on your ability to see people and to see yourself in a right context. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that and how to break shame in your life off. So in other words, if you've struggled with relationships, if you've struggled with having healthy ones and struggled, and it's easy to think that it's the other person. It's easy to blame the other person and think that, if they just treated me better, if they were just nicer to me or whatever, it would be better. But I want to let you know that sometimes, even when they are trying to help us, even when somebody's trying to be kind to us, we may have a shame filter on, which actually does not allow us to receive what they're saying to us. And so it's hard or difficult for us to receive love when we have a shame base at the root of our lives. And so it's just so important for you to realize that you are valuable. In fact, I always say your value doesn't decrease based on someone's inability to see your worth. I'm going to say that again. Your value doesn't decrease based on someone's inability to see your worth. A lot of times we think we draw on other people to give us our value, or we look for significance from other people. And if you grew up in a home that didn't show or express love, or worse, was abusive. It's really difficult to believe that, because our value is kind of based on what we have experienced in life, and if we have shame at the core, like I did growing up, where I never felt like I was going to be good enough, where I never felt like I could actually contribute, or that I would, that I would fail in some way. So I ended up sabotaging relationships. I would sabotage myself, my own success. I had as much of a fear of failure, I had a fear of success, because I felt like it would just go away, because I would blow it in some way, because I didn't know my value, because I allowed other people to imprint what they thought I was worth. I often use the illustration of a piece of art. And if you think about a piece of art, the artist determines the value of that art. And so I know that I am not the artist. I didn't create me. And that's why it's so painful when parents can't express love, or make that connection for you that you need to be valued by, because they're our maker in our eyes. But I want to say, in my life, what I discovered was actually God created me in his image, and so he gives me my value. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that later, but I don't want to make this too religious-y for people. I just want you to know that what changed my life was to see from a higher perspective, to see the value inside me. And I needed to learn that that value was in me, regardless of whether somebody saw it or not. And so that's why I always say your value doesn't decrease just because someone can't see it. And yet, often when we have a shame base, that's exactly what happens. That's exactly how we experience it and how it feels to us. So I want to just tell you where this comes from. This basic teaching is something that I learned with Jack Toth at Impact Society. He was my very first guest, if you remember. And we talk about this all the time, but this water bottle kind of represents your soul. It represents who you are as a person. Now, I use water, and we used water because it's the source of life. It's, you're 80% water. You can't live without it. And so I want you to know right off the bat, your family, this world, your circle, they need you. They can't live without you. You are important. You are already validated, because you are created fearfully and wonderfully, and you were created with a purpose. And because of that, you already have value. You don't have to do a lick a thing. You don't have to do one thing more. You are already valuable. And that's where this is. Look at the pure water. You're valuable. But of course, what happens in life is hurts come along. And like in my life, like I said, I always felt like I never measured up, that I couldn't please anybody, that I could never behave good enough. So I had this fear of failure. And so what I did to protect this part of me, because it's the most sensitive part, this is the most sensitive part of you. And so what I had to do is I had to put walls around my heart. And I would start to put walls around my heart. And that's what we do, don't we? We end up putting these walls around the heart. And so I put a wall of anger up around my heart. So I would get angry to keep people at bay. I put a wall of disrespect around my heart. So I layered these walls in, and they became thicker and thicker and thicker around this person. Now, was that person still there? Yes. Who I was created to be, that person who has purpose and hope and is got value and is incredibly important to everyone that knows me. Yes, that person was still there, but I covered it up with the walls. And that's what we do in life. When we have shame, we have to cover it. That's what shame makes us do. I always say pride either puffs up or it covers up. And so when we have shame at the core of who we are, what happens is we will cover it up, or we will puff it up. We'll try and put a bravado on. Either way, we're putting a wall around our heart to try and protect us. So what happens with shame is it tries to say, basically it's saying to you that you are no good. I liken it this way. Shame is an overwhelming feeling that our mistakes, the mistakes become our identity. So our mistakes, the things that we do wrong, become our identity. The underlying issue is low self-esteem. It's a sense of being small or unacceptable or defective in some way. And it becomes our primary self-talk language. So I want you to understand that's what shame does. It's that overwhelming feeling that our mistakes become our identity. Now, I want to talk about what is Where does that come from? Well, let me put it this way. Guilt is that we did something wrong. When we feel guilty, it's when we feel I do something wrong. I've got a slide here just to show you, right? So that's kind of, guilt says that I did something wrong. Shame says I am something wrong. You see, I can respond to guilt and make it right. If I do something wrong or I make a mistake, I can I can simply apologize. I can ask for forgiveness. I can make it right. I can fix it. But if I have shame, if I believe I am something wrong, I'm going to believe that I can't do anything to change it. In fact, I might even believe I'm just going to mess it up even more. And what happens is some hopelessness kind of sets in. And we end up doing two things. Either our shame survival strategy is either, kind of our primary defense is either denial. So we self impose blindness. That's where the blind spots come from. We just kind of deny that we have a problem or that we have shame in our life, or we withdraw, we evade uncomfortable situations, or try and remove ourselves, isolate ourselves, if you will, because nobody's going to love us anyway. That's the kind of attitude we kind of take on. And, think about it. What kind of shaming messages are out in the world today? I mean, think about social media. Think about all the times that social media tells you that you're not good enough, or that you need money and wealth or good looks and this or that to be successful. You're just prolific. Like, it's just prolific right now. It's being poured out on us from every messages from every side is telling us that we are not good or that we need to be better. Cancel culture, huge shaming situation. So you want to break that shaming message off of your life and not do it. Thanks, Susan. Susan's regular watcher and my sister-in-law, and I appreciate your support. She says, I believe we convince ourselves we are not worthy when in fact we are. So true, Sue. When we have that shame base, when we believe that there's something wrong with us, that there's something off with us, and we don't know that we have value, that's exactly what we do. We act like it, we talk like it, we even treat others like it, right? We will allow that negative self-talk. She says, you go on to say, it's a negative self-talk where we, in our lives, due to whatever we have seen, experienced, we convince ourselves that we're not worthy. It's getting out of that negative mindset and believing we are indeed worthy of God's love. That is so true, Susan. It is absolutely true. That's exactly what this message is today all about, is that we have to decide that we already have significance, that we already have value. That's the only way we're going to break away from this idea of shame messaging. Then I always talk about, what about our families? What kind of shaming messages did we hear? I heard growing up, shame on you, more times than I can count. Shame on you, shame on you. Well, that's like literally cursing somebody, right? Now, my parents didn't mean it. They didn't, my mom was a lovely lady, but she was just, she would get angry and she'd get frustrated with me and she would say things like that. Or, in my report card, every report card I ever had said, if he just tried harder, he'd do better. It's like, I was trying my best. I just couldn't get what they were teaching. So I was trying, but people would always accuse me of not trying. But then I realized later that actually I probably didn't put the effort in I could have, because I thought I was going to fail anyway. You see, I had convinced myself through negative self-talk and through that shame filter, I believed that that there's something wrong with me, that I am something wrong, and that's where the problem comes in. So there's three areas that I just want to share for a couple of minutes here that can really help you break that shame cycle in your life. You see, shame affects three areas of our life, and they are, those areas are things that we can work on and that we can build up. And so, and we want to build up. And so those three areas are this. I'm just going to add this slide to the screen so you can see it. Self-esteem, self-image, and self-dignity. Now, self-esteem is how you feel about yourself. It's how you feel about yourself. That's your emotional response to yourself. Self-image is how you see yourself. That's how you view yourself. I saw myself as a failure, so I failed. I acted as a failure. And every time I had somebody come in my life or had to relate with, I always put maybe their criticism, maybe they had a genuine complained about the way I was behaving or acting, and what would I do? I would put it through the lens of shame, and I would say, I am a loser, or I'm no good. And I'd get defensive. I'd try and defend that part of me. I'd put the wall of anger up around my heart because I wanted to defend that. And so what would happen? Well, because I had the wrong view of myself, I didn't have any self-dignity. It's how I treat myself. So what had happened? I became an addict. I was addicted to alcohol, to drugs. I went through a destructive cycle in my life where I was destroying, sabotaging, and trying to set people, break things. And I remember thinking to myself, man, I was told when I was a little guy one time that I was a disgrace to my father because of my behavior. And I remember thinking, I'll show you disgrace. I'll show you how disgraceful I can be. And so I lived down to that expectation. And so that shame, that belief that I was something wrong, really filtered all my relationships and how I saw myself and how I treated others. And so what I needed to do is I needed to build my self-esteem. Now, self-esteem in itself isn't enough, right? I'm a person of faith, and you all know that. And I believe that I call it God esteem. We need to find our self-esteem in what God says about us. And what he says about us is that we're more than conquerors, that we are loved, that we're children, that we've been adopted by him. Everything that he has good to say about us. That's who I am. And so I can feel good about myself because I know I was created out of love, by love. And so that means that I can relate to that. And that's what changed my life. That is what changed my mind, is when I realized and had that revelation that I was truly loved for not doing a thing just because of who I was, just because of who created me. In fact, he calls you his masterpiece. That's actually in the Bible. He says, you're my masterpiece. So he's the master artist. He puts the value on me. And if he says I'm valuable, I choose to believe it. That changed how I felt about myself. So now I'm feeling great. Now I'm feeling great about myself. But how did I see myself? That should change the way I see myself. And I often use the illustration. If you're looking out of one window and all you see is a brick wall and it's boring and it's ugly, well, choose a different window to look out, because the other window might be a beautiful garden. It's the same way. When you look at yourself, you get to choose what you see. Don't look at yourself through the lens of other people, of how people have treated you, of how you've experienced people. Don't look through that lens. Look through the lens that God has for you, or the lens, if you don't believe in God, the lens that you have value. Look through that lens. So you could ask yourself, if I choose to feel that I am valuable, what would I look like? What kind of life would I want? I always tell people you can rewrite your life. It's never too late. It's never too late. I don't know who that's for today, but it's for somebody listening, or even if you're listening later, it's never too late. You can actually build the life that you envision for yourself. In fact, we do that. We build the life we envision for ourselves. So if I envision myself as an addict and as a hopeless and as a shameful person, then that's the life I built. As soon as I decided I was not going to see myself in that light, I was going to see myself as an encourager. I wanted to see myself as someone who helped others. I started to see myself as one that could love others and to be loved. It changed everything I did. Then that's the life that I actually started to live. Sue asks, how do we shed that unworthy shame, guilt feeling? Well, I'm going to tell you that towards the end. I'm going to give you some tips on that. But this is one of the tools right now. Change that self-esteem. Start to feel good about yourself. Start to say, you know what? I do have value because God says I do. You might have to borrow his strength in that area until you get it. And then change the way you see yourself. If you see yourself as an alcoholic, or you see yourself as a person who's not lovable, or you see yourself as a victim, whatever it is for you, if you see yourself that way and it's not bringing life to you, if it's not bringing value to you, then you need to change the way you see yourself. Start to see yourself as an encourager. Start to see yourself as someone who can help others. Start to see that the negative experiences you've had could be actually used to encourage other people who have negative experiences. That's my story. All I did was start to share what I was learning in my healing journey. And as I shared what I was learning in my healing journey, it seemed to help other people. Now I have a full-time career for the last 30 years helping other people and being an encourager. That's my main gift, as an encourager. Now I got all kinds of tools to do that, and I keep developing new ones, but the core of who I am, this person, is I'm an encourager. That's who I am. I know that. So I feel good about that. And so I see myself as an encourager. So guess what? If I have a bad day, I have an off day, and I don't encourage, I actually discourage somebody, I feel it right away. I feel that disappointment, but I feel that conviction. I feel like, hey, I'm not living up to like how I see myself. I'm not living up to my potential. I need to make that right. And then I go and make it right. So yes, we can have guilt and then go make it right, but I like the word conviction. The word conviction in Latin means to be convinced. So I'm convinced that I'm an encourager. So when I discourage somebody, or when I'm grumpy, to put it in simple language, if I'm not treating Sandy or my kids or anyone else with respect and honor and love and the way I see myself being, then I know I'm off. There's something off in me. It's an invitation for me to look inside my heart. Why am I acting this way? Why am I behaving this way? That's not who I am. And I can actually make the adjustment really quickly back to who I am. And that's the beautiful thing. So then that comes to self-dignity. I can treat myself and I can treat others better because I see myself in that light. Then I'm not going to treat myself in a poor way. So for me, drugs and alcohol isn't treating myself right, because I'm not myself when I'm drunk. So I don't want to drink anymore. So I stopped. I've been sober for 32 years. I just stopped because it doesn't add value to my life. It doesn't complement who I say I am, right? And so I started treating myself better. I started self-care. I started realizing it was okay to take care of myself, to be healthy, to actually, it's not selfishness. It's not because, oh, I need all the attention. No, it's not pride. That's not what it is. It actually humbles you. So in your healing journey, when you start to deal with shame and you start to get rid of shame, actually what will flood your heart is gratitude, responsibility. You'll take responsibility when you make a mistake, instead of coming under the shame of it, instead of trying to cover it up or trying to push people away so they don't see it. I actually now can embrace it and take responsibility and say, you know what, I messed up there. That's not who I am. I don't want to be that person. And so I apologize. I can take responsibility. Wow. That was so freeing. That was so freeing. Listen, shame is a very sneaky thing, and it sneaks in, and it just does all kinds of damage. Now, I want to talk to you. I'm going to give you a couple more kind of tips on how this works, and then I'm going to give you the solution and how you can reverse it. Okay. This message today was just burning in my heart for you, and I don't know why, but I felt like it was a timely message for whoever watches this. So there you go. I just try and share what's in my heart. What it's called is, and I'm just going to skip. I'm going to want to show you a slide here. It's called shadow material. When you've had shame from childhood, what happens is you create what's called a shadow material. It's, if you might have heard the word persona before, and that's kind of what this is. You create a persona, or what I call cheap copy of yourself to present to the world, because you want to hide that shame. You create shadow material, and I wanted to share with you how it works. So I want to show you this slide. I hope you can see it okay. But it's that you can see your life is a whole circle. So when you're born as a whole person. You're just a baby. You have no, you're hungry, you cry. There's no pretense. Like if you're hungry, you cry. If your diaper needs change, you can cry. And you're completely dependent on other people loving you and caring for you and whatnot. And that's the most pure personality that you probably have in your life, because there's no filters, there's no persona, there's no shadows, there's no nothing. I'm hungry, I'm going to cry until I get fed. And so it's just simple. But then as we start to grow up, what happens is we start to divide up that perfect circle, and we start cutting pieces out. So for example, let me give you an example so you can understand. I was told that my behavior was poor, that I was a very adventurous kid. I was very energetic. I was curious. So I asked questions all the time. But in my world, that was seen as being disrespectful, or it was seen as rebellious. And so what happened was is I'd get in trouble for asking questions, or I'd get in trouble for being curious or being too active, uh, too energetic. I would be in trouble because I was supposed to behave, and kids should be seen and not heard, and all those kinds of old adages. And so what happened was is I had to cut out that part of my life. So that energetic, curious little boy wasn't allowed to be. So I had to cut it out. I had to block it out. And if I was live here, I would take and cross out one of those little pie squares and pie shapes. And but I can't not be a whole person. So I have to replace it with something. And that's what the psychiatrists and the professional world call shadow material. So I had to put a persona out there of somebody who I wasn't, but it was kind of a mirror image of who I was, but if I was left to be on myself. And so I had to fake things. You've heard the don't fake it until you make it. I always say, don't fake it till you make it, declare it until you believe it. But I had to create these personas that were not really me in order to be liked, in order to be heard, and whatnot. So as I grew up, I kept adding that shadow material until I became unrecognizable to myself. And what happens, by the way, when that happens is there's a few things that take place. One is we start to disown aspects of ourself. So we kind of disconnect, we repress, regress, we split off, we kind of despise, we start to hate who we are because that shame is there. We don't want anybody to see it. So that's kind of the shadow material causes us to disown the real us and take on the persona instead of who we really are. The other thing, and that I would say the persona are the walls that we put up around our heart. The other thing is we'll project it onto others. So which then we feel angry or critical towards. So we'll blame, the old blame game. We'll put it on to someone else because it must be their fault, or we can't take any responsibility because that would be exposing our shame. And so that's what happens. Anger and critical feelings, these are all subconscious things, by the way. We're not aware that we're doing it, but we do it. So anger and critical feelings or judgments point directly to our shadow material. So when somebody disapproves of something we do, or they we are feeling like they don't like us for some reason, we really get defensive, and we could either blame or get aggressive, get angry, or we kind of fade away and we walk away feeling rejected. And those rejection feelings are very real to us. And that feeling of failure was very real to me. It was, I always say perception's reality, but it's not always actuality. But it felt really real to me because my feelings told me that I was no good, that I was a failure. So when that happened, I had to disown those parts of myself. And here's the good news is that there is opportunity to reintegrate with a healthy, with the healthy essence of disowning those disowned parts. So you actually do have the ability, and that's what I'm going to teach you in a minute, to actually reconnect with who you really are. Because who you really are, if you think about it, when you get to the core and wade through all of that swampland of your soul, you actually do love yourself. You actually do appreciate who you are when you know it's the real you. The problem is we've experienced so much pain in life. so much pain. It's like it's really hard to see the value in us. But when you start to heal, you can start to see that value. Someone else has commented here. Thank you so much for jumping in. Are you going through a heartbreak? You want to? Okay, somebody's just advertising, so I'm not going to show that, and I'll remove it later. We don't need to do advertising for other things here. But I'll remove it later. So, I just want you to understand that that can be healed in you, but that shadow material. So how do you do that? Well, there's kind of three ways that help. Okay. One is find someone to attach to with love and approval. Now, sometimes that's a negative thing. Sometimes we attach to people that aren't good for us because we can't say no, because we want that approval, and they approve us in the beginning stages of relationship. I always say in relationships, if you go slow in, it'll go long, but if you go fast in, it might be short. And so you want to make sure that when you do find somebody to attach to, that you already have the love and approval. You're not earning it. You don't have to prove it or anything like that. So sometimes when we deal with shame, we'll attach to the wrong people. The other way we try to avoid the shame experience. So we'll just cover it up. We'll just hide from it and whatnot. And then 3 is sometimes we'll agree with the shaming message. So what happens is, this is how we deal with shame in the natural, and it's not healthy. You don't want to do any one of these 3 things, because if you find someone to attach to and you need it from them, it's not within you. So you want to find a way of doing this where you find it within yourself, if that makes sense. And so I really encourage you to do that. So how do we get rid of this shame? Okay, well, I'm glad you asked. I guess we're going to go there now because we're halfway through our time together. I want to give you some practical tools. I want to introduce you the principle of disbursement. Okay. I always say you walk where you look. So when in your healing journey, if you're trying to look at what's broken, what you think needs fixed, if you think you need fixing, you don't. We need healing. We don't need fixing. But if you're looking at what your problems are, you're going to keep going back to the problems. You're going to keep, like I said before, how you see yourself will direct you and where you go in life. So in the same way, the same principle, the principle of disbursement here, I should take my, let me just do something here. I'm going to take that off so you can see the whole slide. The principle of disbursement is this. If I just took this water and I just emptied it out, then I got nothing left in me. And sometimes, yes, we have to really break everything down and let go of everything before we can refill. But that's a hard thing. I don't think most people can't just let go of everything at once. It just doesn't happen. And so we keep looking at what's wrong instead of what's strong. The principle of disbursement is this: put new information in. So for example, let's say in this picture, you can see the little blue dye getting poured into the water there. Let's say that blue dye represents shame. So those are shaming messages that have come into your life where you believe you are something wrong. And what happens is they'll taint the water. So this beautiful, pure water will become blue. And, whatever many colors that you can think of, the shame, every time somebody drops a drop of shame into your life, speaks some curse over you, speaks poorly about you, treats you poorly, those are all drops of blue dye into the pure water of your value. Okay. Well, if we try to get rid of all of those at once, we can't. It would destroy us. If we start to pour in fresh water, in other words, fresh information, fresh knowledge. In other words, I want to surround myself with people who are affirming me. I want to affirm myself. That's where that comes in, where I start to build my self-esteem, start feeling better about myself. I want to put that information into the glass in this illustration. And what happens is it'll start to just splash out all the blue water. If I have a glass full of blue water and let's call it shame, like in that last picture, right? Like that, and that's shame coming into my life, it'll eventually turn the whole glass blue. And I start pouring fresh water in, eventually it'll pour out over the sides, and all the shame will start to be removed from your life. If you try to take the shame out without putting the new content and the new information in, it's not going to work. So how do you do that? Well, I am statements. You use affirmation statements out loud. Look at yourself in the mirror every morning. Have about 5 affirming. I am powerful. I am an encourager. I am kind. I am lovable. You need to make those statements over yourself and declare it until you believe it. And that's how you start to remove shame from your life. You're never going to remove shame by trying to behave better or to be better, because it just doesn't work. You have to start pouring in that new information. Start to believe. Let's call that water flowing into that glass new beliefs. So I started to change my beliefs. I started to believe. I started to see myself, like I said earlier, as an encourager. I started to believe that I was an encourager. I started to believe I was lovable. I started to believe I was valuable because God said he loves me and he values me. So I started pouring that into my life. And that started to displace or disperse the shame that I was not good enough, that I was a failure. And that slow process began to change my life, and it will change yours. That's how we start to displace the 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 stress of that. So how do we kind of what are some of those shame defenses? By the way, I just want to cover a couple of things. What does shame like? How do we know we're defending shame? Well, one of them is, it's the negative ways that we learn to calm ourselves. So if you're wondering, do I have a shame problem? Well, what are some of the negative ways you calm yourself? They help us manage self-worth problems in the short term, but they end up causing even more problems. What are some of those things? Perfectionism. If you think you have to be perfect all the time, or you dread making mistakes all the time, or you have this all or nothing or black and white thinking, that probably means it's pointing that you have a shame problem deeper down. And you might want to be putting some new information in, pour some new water into that glass because it's tainting you, if that makes sense. Another one is rage. If you keep having anger problems and you keep getting angry at people, when you're deeply in a shame thing, you can't withdraw from it. You get angry. It's because you're trying to hide that part of you. Another one is arrogance. Sometimes if I usually tell people, if you point the most arrogant person in the room out to me, and I'll point out the most insecure. Arrogance is one of those cover-ups. That's one of the walls that we put up, is to try so nobody will see our shame. And it doesn't. Confidence looks like humility. Arrogance looks like pride. That's how you know the difference. So, I just want to, point that out, that sometimes that turns into contempt, where we're putting other people down, or to make them feel smaller, so we feel bigger. And those are all shame things that that point to that you have shame in there. Exhibitionism. Now that's not meaning. I have a funny picture for that, by the way, if you're interested in seeing it. Um, if you're watching today or watching online. Um, oh, there we go. Hang on, I want to show you. So there's my picture for this. Santa Claus flashing. That's not what I'm talking about when I talk about exhibition. What I'm saying is have to be the center of attention. You have to always have approval by being the center of attention. Everything revolves around you. And when it doesn't, you feel rejected and you feel alone. And instead of wanting to give to others, you want to receive all the time. And so that a lot of times, if you've survived early shameful experiences in your life, you'll convert the embarrassment of it or humiliation of it into flamboyance, or into public flamboyance, or into being the center of attention. And so that's another sign. So here we go. How do we heal the shame shadow? Here's how you do it. You have to challenge the 5 core shame messages that cause you to feel worthless and small. So shame has 5 core messages, and there's a whole bunch of sub ones underneath that get in the minutia in them, some of the things we've already talked about. But here are the 5 very simple shadow, the shadow material, shame shadow will tell you. Number 1, you are no good. If you believe that you're no good, then you have a shame problem. That's what shame is telling you, that you're no good, because everyone has value. There is nobody that is no good. You are not good enough. Sometimes in my healing journey, I went from I'm no good to I'm not good enough as I was growing. But you have to challenge that. You have to push back and say, I am good enough. I am good enough in my comments, and um, in my who I am, who God created me to be. So I am good enough. I have to come against that. I have to push back on that message. Okay. You are unlovable. There's another overarching message of shame, is that I'm unlovable in some way. That's not true. You are absolutely lovable. You are lovable. So when you're pouring that fresh water in, you want to make declarations like, I am lovable. You see, that counteracts that shame message, and it sends shame running because it knows it's lost at that point. All right. You don't belong. Oh my goodness. How many of you felt that way, where you just don't fit in? You don't belong for some reason. Uh, you know, It's so hard to think that you belong. This was my problem for years. It didn't matter what group I was a part of, didn't matter where I was. Even after my healing journey, during, there, even now, there's times when I am at a leadership conference and I feel kind of like there's really high level leaders in the room. I can get a little insecure, and I can feel like, I don't belong in this room. That is such a lie. That is not true. You belong. If you hear nothing else today, you are good enough. You are lovable. You do belong. And when you start to put that information in, all those other ones will leave your body, it will leave your mind. And so the last one is you shouldn't exist. I remember thinking that all the time when I was broken, when I was hurting. I remember always thinking that I wish I didn't exist. How many of us have said that to ourselves? I shouldn't exist. No, don't. Yeah, Susan said, don't allow self-doubt to creep in. That's exactly it. You've got to keep putting fresh water in, pure water. Pure water is the goodness of God, right? Keep putting the good things that he says about you in your heart and in your life. And that's what's going to happen. That's the beauty of that. Yeah. And so thanks, Sue. Yeah, I'm trying to make this as clear and understandable as possible. Thank you, Julie. Such a faithful follower and encourager to me. Yeah, it says this is so powerful and offers so much hope for freedom from a lifetime of shame. So that is so true. You do not listen. This is specifically for you, Julie, but it's also for everybody. You don't deserve shame. You don't deserve to carry shame. Shame is not your friend. Shame does not have the best in mind for you. Shame wants to destroy you. It wants to keep you isolated and alone. And that's why these are the 5 messages it tries to speak. No, you absolutely deserve to be free from shame. You are worthy. If you don't think you're worthwhile, know that you're worthy. Start there, and you'll be able to do that. So you need to kind of combat those 5 messages that push back on them when they come into you. So how do you do that? Well, I want to just give you this one here. So what helps to do this? Well, first of all, take responsibility. Listen, you just need to acknowledge it and say, you know what? I had to do this. You know what? I allowed shame to control my life. I allowed it to damage relationships. So I take responsibility. I did that. It wasn't anybody's fault. I take responsibility. The second thing is listen to your body. Listen to, when you're getting a shame message, because it actually affects all of it. It actually can create sickness in you. It's been proven now medically that stress and anxiety can actually cause health problems. And so stress and anxiety at the root is shame. We need to break shame. You'll notice the stress and anxiety will start to leave your body, and your body can then flourish. It can be healthy. It's so true. So listen to your body. So listen to those times when shame is speaking and not truth. Okay. Truth will set you free. Shame will bottle you up. So listen to yourself. Listen to your heart. 3 is coping statements. Those affirmations that I said. Write a few of them out. Put them on your mirror. Write them and say them every day out loud. Speak it out of your spirit into your soul, right? Speak it out. I am lovable, so that your brain can hear it and register it. And there's some brain science around that I don't have time to get into today, but you're literally redoing you're recreating your neural pathways in your brain when you do that kind of stuff. So those are 3 ways. Here's some shame breaking statements that you can use, and I'm not going to put them on the screen. I'm just going to speak them out. But here's some of those shame breaking statements that you can do. Okay, you can say, I accept myself completely without qualifiers. Now, you might say to me, Mark, and I've heard this from many people, Mark, come on, like, I can't say that with truthfully. Well, listen, you can say that if you're not quite there to say, I accept myself completely without qualifiers, say, I am working towards accepting myself without qualifiers. I can say today, I accept myself without qualifiers. You know why? Because I actually accept the good parts of me and that I can make mistakes. I'm aware. I don't, if I make a mistake, if I blow it, if I get angry, if I whatever, I see it as an invitation for me to look deeper into my heart and get some healing. So I don't reject it. I don't hide from it anymore. I can actually accept myself fully with qualifiers. I know that I have things I need to work on, so I don't need to qualify. I accept myself just as I am. Folks, that is so powerful. If you can grab a hold of that, it'll change your life. It's so powerful. Next one is I choose deeper inner peace within myself as I am. Look in the mirror and say that. I choose. It's a will. It's an act of your will. It's not an emotion. Your emotions will catch up, but it's an act of your will to say, I choose deeper inner peace within myself as I am. Listen, we're always changing. We're always evolving. We always want to grow. But I got to start where I am. I got to start where I am. I can't start 10 steps down. I got to start where I am. So you can absolutely say that and say, I'm going to accept myself and have peace about myself today. And then surrender and say, God, work on the parts that need work, right? So Sue says we're all human. We all make mistakes. Accept that, acknowledge, and then move on. Couldn't have said it better myself. Accept it and whatever. Anyway, I have a whole bunch more. I will only say positive things about myself. I choose to forgive myself for all that I've done. That's a huge one. Choose to forgive yourself. It's not an emotion. The emotions will catch up. Declare it. I choose to forgive myself for all the things I've done. Next step is I choose to forgive others for all they've done. That's powerful right there. I choose to forgive every person in my life who undermined my self-esteem. Woo! I choose to forgive. I did that. I went through the list. I chose to forgive everyone who undermined my self-esteem. And boy, was it ever freeing. Forgiveness is not for them, it's for you. It's for you. Believe it or not, forgiveness actually releases you. It unlocks you. And often people say, well, I don't want to let them off the hook for what they did. No, you're letting yourself off the hook for what they did. You're acknowledging what they did. You're not denying it. You're saying that was painful, but I choose to forgive. That will be powerful. That will be one way to get rid of shame. Shame loves unforgiveness. Shame loves unforgiveness. It loves bitterness. It loves resentment. Boy, shame just attaches itself to those things. But it hates forgiveness. It hates grace and kindness, and it'll run away from those things. And so that's one way that you can break shame in your life. And so that's so important to know. So there you go. That's that's some of what I've had in my heart today. I want you to know that you are very valuable. You are so valuable, and you are worthy of love. You're worthy to be cared for and to be loved and to be celebrated, right? To be celebrated. I want to say this, that Audrey Hepburn said, "Nothing is impossible. The word itself says, I'm possible." I like that. If you break up after the M, you separate I'm from possible. I'm possible. Listen, I want you to know today that you are possible, that you have value. And if you're struggling with shame, I've given you some tips today on how to deal with it. But I encourage you to find somebody that can help you. You can call me, you can reach out to me. I'm happy to help you. I help every day. I help people get, because I tell you, a lot of times when I'm even helping with relationship coaching and I'm helping couples who are struggling, shame's at the center of it. In some form or another, they've either feel shame or been shamed, and they don't even know it's there. They think it's the other person's fault, or they think it's something else. But I would say the reason I wanted to share this on the podcast and on the live cast is because I don't think people talk about it. I think shame is a touchy subject that people don't want to talk about, because if they do, they got to admit, or they're scared they're going to see it in themselves. And that's kind of horrifying to think about, but it's not. It's freedom to point it. Look at it right in the eye. Shadow boxing, punching shame in the face. Just look at it right in the face and punch it and say, shame, you have no hold on me. You are not allowed here. In fact, make the environment, listen to this, make the environment of your soul so lovable, so accepting, so gracious, so generous that shame has no room to live there. Listen, shame will evict itself. You don't even have to do a lot of work. Just work on those things. Be gracious, be loving, be who you are. See yourself in a different light. Start to declare those things over your life. Start to make those I am statements. Start to declare what you have in your deep. Listen, you all know it. You know what's at the depth of your heart. If you could remove all the obstacles and remove everything in life and just say the kind of person you want to be, I think you would find that at the core, it would be, I want to be generous. I want to be loving. I want to be, I want to be encouraging. I think that you have that in you. And I think it's been hidden up. It's been shut up with layers of shame, layers of regrets, layers of resentment, layers of pain. And you don't deserve it. You deserve to be free, to live free. God has promised you an abundant life. And I'm going to kind of close out with that. I've left it to the end because I don't want to get preachy here. I wanted to give you tools. That's my heart, is to empower you. But let me tell you something. The empowerment I received that really helped me heal and helped me apply these things, the very things that I've taught you today that I've learned in my healing journey, they were useless without the empowerment of God. And I think that the church maybe has presented him in the wrong way. Maybe you've heard, maybe you don't know what you believe, or that, maybe you've been hurt there. I don't know. But I'm just telling you the purity of the heart of Jesus. If you look at his character and his nature and the way he lived his life, you will see all the qualities I've talked about today. And that's who designed you. That's who created you. And what he says about you is nothing but love, acceptance. In Ephesians 1, it says it was his good pleasure to adopt you. Oh, he chose you before you were formed in your mother's womb. He chose you, and he set you apart, and he loves you, and he thinks the best of you. He doesn't think the worst of you. I had somebody say to me one time they have a hard time believing in a God that had to die for them because they were so bad. And I've always seen it opposite. And I told this lady this, and it really profoundly impacted her. Actually, I think he sees you as so good that he wanted to die for you, that he took that shame on the cross. That's really the story of the gospel. That's really the story of Jesus, is that he took your shame and he paid the price for it. So you don't have to. So why do you keep paying the price for it? You don't have to, folks. I don't know where you're at. Just ask God to show you. Ask him to remove the shame from you. But I've given you good, solid tools today. Listen, if you know somebody that's struggling with shame right now, if you know somebody that's struggling with discouragement, maybe some depression, shame's probably at the root of it. Share this video. Send it to them. Private message it to them. You can do that off YouTube or off Facebook. Just send it to them. And if you can't for some reason, send me a message and I'll do it for you. But I want to encourage you, send this video. This video needs to go viral because people need to hear that they're valuable. They need to hear that they're worthy of love, that they don't have to live with shame. Shame is not their friend. It's not your friend. It wants to destroy you. Make your soul so beautiful that it's uncomfortable for shame to live there. Wow. Beautiful. So once again, you can go to markgordon.ca and you can find all, you can get a hold of me there. You can find all my social media links, all those kinds of things. Please subscribe to YouTube, my YouTube channel. I'm trying to get subscriptions up, share it with others. Also, Spotify or whatever platform of podcast you enjoy, find me on there and start sharing it. Like, subscribe. And that just helps me build the audience so that I can get this message to more people. That's my heart. My heart is not to make $1 million, although I would take that if God wants to give it to me. That's not my purpose in life. My purpose is to encourage people. And I really believe in this season of my life that I am called to get this message out to as many people as possible. So you can help with that. I ask you, if you're watching it live here, as you hang up, make sure you share this message out with a few people. If you are not live and you're watching it later, please share it out. Like, subscribe, and share. And we can actually help many, many people together. We can join forces and help people know that they're valuable and that they deserve love. Thanks so much for coming today. Man, I just talked for a whole hour. I've got a gift of gab, I guess, but I guess I'm always teaching and preaching and speaking and whatever. But I just, it's funny. I really appreciate Susan and Julie and, for the comments and for joining in the conversation. I really appreciate your contribution to this. And even if you're watching later, comment and put questions in there. I'll get notified of it and I'll answer them. I'm happy to do that for you. So thanks so much. Next week, I've got a special secret guest. You're going to love it. So join me every Thursday, 1 p.m. Pacific time. We have live cast. Usually I have guests on, and I probably will for the rest of the shows. I might do another one of these on another subject. Maybe put in the comments, what subjects would you like me to tackle? Let me know what I can do. What are some things you'd like me to talk about? What are some subjects that we should bring up on the live cast and on the podcast, so that I can make sure that I'm addressing the very things that you need me to address. So thanks so much. Take care, and we'll see you next week.